Hello, and welcome to our podcast where the dark corners are. Hello. I am Vina, and I am your Dark Travels hostess. Tonight, most of the gang is here, but more importantly, the polar bear is here.
In 1995, a team of paranormal travel podcasters found an abandoned cub in the haunted Arctic. After some kick-ass paranormal training and his first alien kill, he was ready. So, if ghosts, serial killers, or monsters in the dark got you scared, don't hesitate to call the polar bear. The polar bear. And Sam.
Yes. It's perfect.
So, side note, we do actually have the gang's all here theme song.
But we don't have
Is it
the
just
gang.
that? The gang's all here. What is
No.
that from?
No, I don't know. It's not just that.
It's from 10 or How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Is it? I don't know. Can you?
Every time.
He's a little shit.
Well, since he's doing that. Yeah, so have you seen that movie with Kate Hudson?
Yeah.
It's when she is setting up his house and bringing in the love fern and stuff. She's like, the gangs are all here. Fiona and blah, blah, blah. And she's talking about all the girls that she put into his, like, record thing.
Okay. All right. But they have not heard the theme song because,
Negatory.
for one, I'm not sure how I feel about it. And two, the panda's not here to give his panda bear opinion.
Okay, so you mean to tell me we don't get to hear the song, even though we're here and we showed up for you tonight?
Yes,
Chewy's
Rose.
here, and just because Panda's not here, we don't get to listen to it?
Well, that and my computer's doing something funny. You saw it before we started recording.
All right, whatever, fair enough.
Okay.
Chewy, you're coming home with me as a consolation prize.
Okay. So tonight, we're actually going to recognize mothers, or rather, the not so good mothers. Last year or the year prior, we did Mommy Dearest series, and this year we're kind of bringing back a few Mommy Dearests to acknowledge that there are some pretty horrific mommies out there.
Yes, I would like to state that Brutus did do a Mommy Dearest, right?
Yes, he did.
And I tried to
Augustus.
get him to come tonight, and he refused. So shout out to Brutus. Show up next time.
Okay.
Just publicly shaming him in hopes that it helps.
Okay.
A lot of attitude in that one.
Right.
They're not related in any way. Okay, so who are we talking about today? Who's our Mommy Dearest tonight?
Oh, you want me to introduce
I
her?
want you to try it, and then I'll try it. And I'll see who says it better.
Flordelis dos Santos de Souza.
Flordelis dos Santos de Souza.
Okay.
She Google translated in the mirror
I did not.
before she came here.
Well, so Flordelis is a French word, right?
Yes.
For lily.
Which gives you the impression that this mommy is French, but I don't think
She's
is.
not. She's Brazilian. But I don't think her name is actually pronounced Flordelis like the French word lily. I think it's actually Flordelis.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure, so I only refer to her as de Souza.
Okay.
Oh, jeez. Okay. Well, we're going to fuck a lot of people up because I'll just do Flordelis the entire time.
We'll see where we're going. We'll just pivot.
Today's episode is brought to you by Slusher Sam. Her idea.
Yes, this woman. We need to talk about this woman.
Okay.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. And I started looking into it, and I was like, that's actually really interesting. And it's really relevant because The events actually take us up to until 2022, 2023. Yeah, pretty current.
It is very recent, yes.
So De Souza.
All right, so Flordelis. I'm gonna start out. I'm gonna do like a little background on her, and I'm gonna do one side of the coin, and I feel like Sam's gonna do a completely different side of that same coin. Flordelis was born February 5th, 1961. February birthday. I like it. Was born in Jacarezinho in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil in 1961. Her father was a small-town musician, and her mother was a teacher. And they lived in a favela. So to get a little bit off topic here, I'm going to cover a little bit what a favela is, and just to give you a background on what kind of environment our main character grew up in. The only other word that I can think of to describe a favela is like a ghetto. So a favela exists when homeless people or squatters take over a location. Naturally, it is a poorest part of the town. In Brazil, favelas surround major cities such as Rio de Janeiro. For example, favelas are those houses you see in movies. They're stacked on top of each other. When you see any movie that has Rio de Janeiro in it, they pan out, right? You have the statue of the big guy with the arms straight
Right, the statue.
right? And then around it, you just see those little houses, and they're all multicolored, pink, purple, yellow, very bright. But they literally look like they're stacked on top of each other.
Okay.
And they're really close together.
So it's jam-packed.
Jam-packed, tiny little alleyways. And
Yeah, because you want to try to get as many people in as possible in a small amount of space, and the more you build up, the cheaper it is.
right. And I mean, favelas, they get no aid from like local government or anything. And they're actually ran by local gangs. It's so bad there. It breeds gang members, growing gang culture due to lack of opportunities and resources. Kids in favelas join gangs at a very early age and have access to like arsenals of weapons. It's mild to say it's like a wild west ruled by guns and drugs.
Yeah, it gives me kind of a Sinaloa vibe.
Okay.
So yeah, favelas originated, the Brazilian favelas originated in 1800s when tens of thousands of veterans came to Brazil and had nowhere to live. So they settled in like the areas around big cities, and they ended up starting to build these homes out of scraps and like whatever they could find.
Because they were so poor and
Yeah,
didn't have
so
a
poor,
whole lot
yeah.
of opportunity to.
And now when you look at them, a lot of them are made out of concrete and stuff, but they're not up to regulation.
Right. They
you
wouldn't
know?
pass.
Yeah, so it's just, you know.
Well, who's going
it's
to tell
just
the cartel that
yeah.
they make shortcuts?
It's just a roof over the head, you know. So now, actually, it's kind of sad because more than 11 million people Brazil live in one of the favelas. It's really bad there. This is so throughout time, a lot of religious leaders found their way into favelas because of how bad it is, and you know when the times are hard, that's when people
Start relying on their faith.
Yeah, happen to turn to religion and whatnot. So yeah, so you know, religious leaders came here and they found it really easy to convert people to their religion because in such dark times, it's easy to look for the light. And I mean, I don't know. Have we ever discussed religion kind of like here and there? Cults, but like religion itself.
I think religion is a cult.
What's your opinion? Yeah.
No, I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think it promotes one gender and one race.
I think that it's a topic that makes it really easy to manipulate people. So
Absolutely.
I think that religion in its basis in having faith and beliefs are a good thing. But I think that it's just so easy because everything that we have in religion is handed down by men, which means they can be corrupted by men. And
who's the person in charge? Men. Who's the person not in charge? Not women.
All right, well, you see this one, and this is a woman too that is also awful. But it's just whenever you tell someone you need to follow me blindly for your soul to be saved, it's inherently giving them too much power over someone
Correct.
else. So I just don't vibe with that. And also, I was raised Catholic. And
Well, you know, the other thing about the Catholic religion, they gave you an out. You confess your sins, you're good. Say a couple of Hail Marys, you're good. And I mean,
But confess your sins to men that we come to find out have been molesting children.
correct.
So-
not necessarily. It's actually mostly boys.
Right.
So
And not all priests Not
No,
all
no, no.
religions.
No, we're not
But I
saying
just
that.
don't vibe with it. You know, it just
Right.
to me, organized religion
Once-
gives someone too much power.
I think we veered really off course.
Well, no, I
He
like it.
asked.
That was I literally have it in parentheses. We're gonna discuss faith altogether. I am
Discuss
fucking it's
religion.
right there.
I love your notes. They kill me.
No, I completely agree. Yeah.
I mean, he's the
No,
white
I-
guy
I
with blonde
fucking-
hair and blue eyes in the room, okay?
I don't know. I mean, throughout history, there's been more blood spilled in the name of God than there has been in any other reason.
Justification.
Yeah.
Or cry of justification. Correct.
Right, and I mean, it then turns. I mean, depending on each religion, it just turns people against each other, and then, like you said, maybe originally it started out something good, something pure, but people themselves have screwed it up. I mean, have you ever heard of it like a miracle, like a legit miracle, like something really good has happened? Not really, but then like every other day you're like, oh fucking
All this horrible
yeah,
stuff.
all these horrible things that go on, and then the cultiness, the manipulation of people, and then that is literally the exact opposite of a miracle. And
Well, I will point this out. Do you know who owns the biggest museum in the world? The Pope.
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, it's
And-
factually accurate that if you walk through the Vatican at any given time and look at every piece, you'd be there for like 3 days if you looked at every piece for 15 minutes. It's insane.
But what you see is just a portion of what they actually own.
Well, and mind you, there's no penises on anything anymore because we cut them all off. You know
Well,
what I mean? Like
we didn't.
they
but-
destroyed these things too, because like that's how important art was to them. Like they didn't care. Like you said, they had so many riches. They're like, yeah, we'll destroy this stuff.
But my point is that part of how they inherited was that people who were dying were like, this is my gift, my way
Right.
to get into heaven. And so they gave to the Catholic Church. Well, and I've said this before, I was baptized Catholic, and I mean, I kind of had some problems with it, but it wasn't until I learned that they assisted the goddamn Nazis with getting to Brazil and other parts of South America that I was like, I'm out. Fuck this. I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a strong believer that some of the times the only thing that gets you through is believing in a higher power or having faith that you're walking a path that you're meant to walk. But with politics, religion, anything, if you have an extreme version of it, if you have someone that's a diehard, it's going to not be good inherently. You know, many Christian people are like, here's my Bible. Don't do this while I go over here and do exactly what I just told you not to do. And
Yes.
I don't love that. There's so much hypocrisy in religion that doesn't vibe with me.
Right.
I mean, are you doing good things just because you think they're good, or are you doing it because of a consequence of going to hell or making
Right.
it into heaven? Or
Right.
I mean, do you
Doing
need
it-
the fear of eternal demise
To be a good
to be a good person, or can you just wake up
That's a
and be a
great point.
decent fucking person?
That's a phenomenal point.
It's a day-by-day basis, man.
Fuck some shit up today.
Well, can you not be a good person if you're gay? Because that's what the churches will tell you. And I don't think that's the truth at all.
Right. And, the thing that did always bother me is they tried to say that dogs or animals don't have souls. Fuck you. Yes, they do.
Or what about tattoos? If I tattoo my body, I'm going straight to hell. I'm like, seriously? Why? Like, if I'm a good person and I give to others and I'm kind to other people, what the hell does my tattoo mean?
You violated your temple.
Oh, I violated my temple in many other ways other than my tattoos.
Suddenly, we're not talking about Flordelis
No.
anymore.
I mean, I was talking about booze and cigarettes. What were you guys talking about?
Another thing, I'll probably bring it up in one of our other topics coming up, but it's funny, like when we go to concerts, we're really like hard rock fans, and your people with tattoos are really scary people that
Right.
everybody's afraid of are actually more, I don't want to say friendly, but they look out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
We were at Aftershock in Sacramento, and this guy was drunk out of his mind. Like he couldn't stand, and he's tipping over, and he's got no friends, and just random people grab him by the shirt and they just hold him up. And then he ended up
jamming.
leaning on somebody, and somebody made sure he was safe. I was like, wow, high fives. Anyway,
like it.
we're completely off topic. All right.
I like our tangents.
He's all veering back.
He
Got 2 more
parenthesized-
pages to cover.
Right.
I did parenthesize. Anyway, back to Flordelis. Her parents ended up one of those people that joined the church.
The Pentecostal movement, to be exact.
Yes. Yes.
We get there.
And this is a quote directly from the internet. Pentecostalism, or classical Pentecostalism, is a Protestant charismatic Christian movement that emphasizes direct personal experience of God through baptism with the Holy Spirit. Like other forms of evangelical Protestant. Maybe you should read this part. Protestantism, Pentecostalism adheres to inerrancy of the Bible and the necessity of the new birth, an individual repenting of their sins and accepting Jesus Christ as personal Lord and Savior. It is distinguished by belief in the baptism in the Holy Spirit that enables a Christian to live a spirit-filled and empowered life. And this is probably the most important sentence, is this empowerment includes the use of spiritual gifts such as speaking in tongues and divine healing through faith.
Okay.
So just another real quick tangent. I love the speaking in tongues thing. The thing I like about speaking in tongues is there's a fine line between being like demonically possessed and speaking in tongues. Because if you speak in Latin in a creepy voice, you're demonic. But if you speak in tongues in a jolly spiritual voice, you're holy.
Okay.
I'm like, how does that one work out?
Kind of like witch dunking.
Yeah, there's a
If
little
you
video
sink,
on it too.
You're innocent. If you float, you're the devil's whore.
Right.
Can't win.
Yeah, there was a little video on it, and the dude was like, "Oh, it was like Jesus."
That freaks me out. I cannot.
People sit there. You have to sit through this shit.
Like, if my homie invites me to church and someone starts speaking in tongues, I'm leaving in the middle of the service. I'm like, sorry, God, I gotta go.
I feel like we lost a lot of religious listeners.
Can we rate that? Like, do we get that data?
I don't know.
So the belief is through baptism and enough faith in God, one can gain you power of healing others. You just have to believe really hard. You know, you have to let the Holy Spirit flow through you.
I did that with Santa too. That panned out well.
So Flordelis was a really good singer. She often sang at the church. Once she got older, she began to preach at her church and lead prayers. So the church wasn't enough for her. She wanted to save more people and began preaching in the streets of the favela, where she had multiple run-ins with the gangs and the gang leaders. This goes into this weird direction where it's a bunch of stories, and we don't know if she told these stories herself or people came up with them and, you know, spread the word. But the stories say that not only was she not harmed by the gangs, but her preaching and her spreading the word of God would change their behavior. It changed their lives. They would convert and they would become a better person.
So she's suddenly this messiah in the ghetto.
Yeah, and she began to believe it herself, that she was spiritually enlightened. It said that she was a very strong preacher and her crowds and followers grew very quickly. In her 20s, she married a man and had 3 children. She also got a job as a school teacher. As you would think, finding a man in a ghetto, he left her when she was 30 with 3 kids. At this point, she was a teacher and a preacher, that rhymed, and began preaching that she was getting visions from above. She even developed a group of disciples that would preach with her, and they would go into the streets of favela at night and try to convert more of the local gang members and criminals to better men. So you know what that reminds me of? Watch Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember the preacher guy?
Mm-hmm.
He started out by himself, and then he developed that whole cult with the batons and shit.
I've never seen an episode.
Really?
Missing out. So after all the stories, her passionate preaching and beautiful voice, people started calling her a saint.
Well, that escalated kind of quickly.
Yeah. Being the saint that she is, opened up her home to children in need. She served as a foster mom to many children. Kids would come stay at her house when they were in need. The word spread that it was a nice place to stay, and not only did Flordelis' house become a sanctuary for kids, it also became a place you would go to stay with her, even though they had parents and they had a roof over their head. they heard that there was like, it was a little more lenient there and they could hang out with their friends. So they would just leave their home and go live with Flordelis.
Yeah, in all the articles I read, they kept referring to them as street children.
Right.
That she had taken in, and she claimed that she had rescued them from the lives of poverty and crime, which probably is true.
To some extent.
Yeah, based on how bad it was there, but still.
So one day, this is actually a pretty cool story. After preaching at a train station, a woman came up to Flordelis and begged her to save her baby. She then proceeded to tell her that she abandoned her child in an empty lot. So after some investigating, they found the baby exactly where the woman said the baby would be. And Flordelis adopted the baby as her own. So at this point, go ahead.
So this baby number 4?
No, so she had kids staying with her already. So that's there's a blurred line of what kids were hers, what kids weren't hers.
Right.
Just
because she was
so many
adopting
kids.
them. So we know for a fact she had 3 biological children.
Yeah.
And then she had various numbers of children that just kind of stayed, and then a number of children that we'll kind of talk about that she adopted.
So yeah, but at this point, she had a new husband. And would you like to expand on that now, or would you like to expand on that later?
No, I mean, I think this is a good thing to talk about. So when she was 32, she met the teenage Anderson, who was 16 years old. So she was 16 years his senior. At the time that she met him in 1993, she was looking after her 3 biological children, and per the articles that I read, 5 street children at that time.
Got
But
that
the
right here.
16-year-old
Those are facts. I got
Nailed
that
it.
in my notes too.
Yeah, he was 16, yes.
Okay.
So I think what I really struggle with is that she did actually seem to have really good intentions. Like, she was really trying to do well for these people, and I'm not really sure where it turned, but we're finding right now that in 1993, meeting this Anderson Du Carmo, that this is where it kind of
There's a
starts
shift
to
now.
go the bad way, yeah.
Okay.
So, according to one of her adopted sons, De Cormo was underage at the time. Like I said, he was 16, and he had officially moved in with the family as another adoptive son. But his adoption was never official. And in
He ended up
1998,
dating her biological daughter.
right.
Prior to the marriage.
Yeah. So when he first started living with him, he was dating the
The daughter.
yeah,
yes.
he was dating the daughter.
I think
so
they're
this
about the
was a
same
Stacy's mom's got to go
Oh,
on
yeah.
scenario.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, so in 1998, she actually does marry him, but he's 21 at the time.
Right.
She had to wait.
And well, she swore once it was all found out. It was like she swore she didn't touch him until he was 18. But
Okay, yeah.
And I don't know why, of all the people that she adopted, that this is the only one that the adoption, quote unquote, didn't go through on.
Convenience.
Right.
Convenience.
So, just saying.
anyway, so after finding the baby, some time has passed, and the same lady shows up from the train station, shows up on their doorstep with 30 plus children that had no homes or parents. And, even though her family lived in a 2-bedroom home, she took them all in. She
Oh my
also made
God.
her good deeds well known. This is just a small house. They're still living in the ghetto at this time.
So what's this lady doing? Rounding up all the kids and just, hey, I got a lady for you?
Yeah, she's like a Pied Piper.
Well, yeah.
essentially.
The story was that their parents were killed by I don't think it was military. It was like police brutality type, like big incident or some shit. And so all these kids were orphaned.
Yeah, so this couple, just to be clear, took in 55 children during their marriage.
Okay, goddamn.
So yeah, and yeah.
Like, how do you pay for that? I can barely pay for 3 children.
I know.
Just saying.
And it's a 2-bedroom.
And yeah.
Yeah, and I got a
I mean,
5-bedroom and 3 baths, and it's still too small.
Once we get to the back, I'll kind of explain
Right.
how the paying or whatever.
Well, yes, right. We get an idea of how they start generating money. But at this time, I don't know how they're generating enough,
Okay.
so to speak.
It blew up. This religious lady
Taking
taking all these homeless
It's
children.
kind of
just
like, give me your poor, your
Yeah.
helpless.
Yeah.
Saint de
she's-
Souza will take all the
and
babies.
Remember, her followers already think she's fucking God's
That was
gift.
Italian. I don't
Okay,
care.
that
I
was
only speak in
Italian.
Italian. I have one accent. It's
Okay.
Jersey or Italian Jersey.
Okay.
It's fine.
So the media blew up her story, and her good acts turned into a crime because the children were illegally harbored. So she was summoned to appear in court, but instead of going to court, she took all the children and she went into hiding, having more run-ins with gangs that also, she showed up. 'Cause she didn't go very far. It said
No.
that she went like 20 miles out. But yeah, she ran into another gang, and they were like, "What the hell are you doing with all these kids?" Blah 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 blah.
Well, and also she's taking their foot soldiers. I mean, that's who they want, right?
Right.
Gangs are
Right.
going to target people without
And-
family that need something.
But per the story, her adopting these kids was, so emotional and so tragic. Because even gang members have consciousness and they look out for families and
Some of them.
whatnot. But anyway, it converted those gang members to the point where they appealed to their human side, because not only did they let her go, but also they helped her find accommodations where she could stay hidden and harbor all the children
To take care of. Okay.
to take care of. Yeah.
Something else was going on there, but I don't know if we ever figure that out.
So then she comes out of hiding, and because it's not working. Her only way out was to get in front of a camera and explain her side of the story. Like, look at me, I'm this person, I'm saving these people. So with all the publicity that she received from that, it seemed that even the judge and the officials that wanted her to turn herself in, they turned to her side and helped her not only financially but also legally adopting some of these children. So I don't know if it's just because it blew up, and even even
Nobody
officials
wanted to look bad.
need
Yeah,
to be
what do you
reelected.
do?
Like, the government's taking all these homeless kids away. So she actually got benefactors. Her benefactors also retrofitted her with a new home to house all the kids in a nicer part of Rio. So she's building. This is great.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going nice. And the publicity didn't stop there. Her extreme yet heartfelt act inspired a movie. The steady money flow gave them an opportunity to build their own church, where both her and her husband preached and Flordelis sang. She's then...
I was going to say they actually then go on to having 9 churches.
Yeah. She then put out her own musical album, which led her being invited to a show called Planet Susha, which in Brazil it's equivalent to Ellen DeGeneres or
Like
Oprah.
a talk show.
Yeah, she's just like really big. She's really famous. You get a boat.
Right. And just for timeline's sake, so she met her now husband that was 16 in 1993. And they get married in 1998. And now her first album's launching in 2010.
Okay.
So it's been a period of
This
time.
is a long time, but yeah, it is steps though. She keeps climbing up. There's not like, oh shit, a little backtrack. But even her first album, it doesn't do that great sales wise, but it gives her more publicity. But on that show, Susha was moved by her story, and during the show announced that Flordelis as a mother of the nation, a title she basked in for a really long time. So her popularity blew up and eventually helped her sign with a recording agency and put out more albums, opened 8 more churches, and even became an equivalent of a governor in Brazil in 2019. So a preacher, a singer, movie star, and a mother of the nation is only one side of Flordelis' coin.
Now, you said movie star. She got into acting.
Yeah, well, the movie they made about her, she played herself.
Oh, okay.
She made, that was, she played herself, and then everybody else were famous actors from soap operas in Brazil.
Okay.
And just a little bit of some different stuff that I saw was that she, as we talked about, was on TV. And when they put her on TV, they very much portrayed her as like the devoted mother, the ideal mother. So like, this is what we're aspiring to be towards.
All of the mothers should be like her.
Yeah, and she's like a straight tele-evangelical type of person, which if we've learned anything from history, it is do not send them money, do not watch them on Sundays on your weird channels.
Oh.
Don't do it.
The movie, the actors worked, everything they would have got paid for the movie, they donated to her to take care of the kids.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think her intentions started off good at first, and then it just kind of changes. And to be exact, it changes on the evening of June 15th, 2019. So just to go back just for 1 second real quick, because I forgot this. In 2018, De Souza ran for Congress and won a seat in the lower house. So that was of the governor type of situation that we were talking about. And we'll come back to that, so remind me if I forget that. So late on the evening of June 15, 2019, De Carmo and De Souza left for a night out in Rio de Janeiro. So they were looking forward to a break because they had been so busy with all these things that they were doing.
They're all stressed and,
Right, they're busy. They have all these
getting
kids.
Testy and shit.
Right, 50 children. Like, they got to go. So they head into Rio de Janeiro, and they go straight to the beach at Copacabana. And they strolled through the late night crowds, stopping for a snack. It's even said that they're having such a great night that he gets on a chair and he's like saying, "Te amo, te amo," just like feeding everybody. Because remember, he's a pastor too. So like they're both used to being in the spotlight and to just kind of catering to the people. I'm sure when people saw them in public, they were just ecstatic.
Right.
So
Acting for the crowd.
Oh, 100%. And looking like the ever happy couple. So they head home around 2 o'clock in the morning and the streets are completely deserted. And De Souza remembers while she's in the car and they're driving home that a motorcycle like shows up next to them.
Oh,
and then
before that, I don't know if you read that part. They banged on the hood of the car.
maybe I read
Fun
it and
fact.
just didn't want to think about
okay.
it with her child
Oh, I'm sorry.
groom. Oh, God.
By banged, you mean like
They got freaky.
we're humping buddies?
Yeah. On the hood of the car in some random
Ooh.
parking lot.
At 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Well.
2 preachers.
Right.
Just saying.
Shouting to God.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Yes, that right there. Oh, we're all going to hell. So anyway, they see this motorcycle, drives up, then disappears, shows up next to them per her story. They then pull up to the house and no one's around. They kind of lived on like a dead-end street. So they lived in a gated community. So the articles that I read said that it was very much like a middle class, not necessarily upper end, but they had a gate. So they go inside the gate.
Sorry. Fun fact. At this point, they were bringing in 20,000. Was it dollars? Money. 20,000 money a month to where an average person brought home 500 money a month.
Because people are just throwing money. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Okay.
So they're living very high and mighty. They go through the gates of their home. They're at the driveway entrance. She pops out of the car, slips off her shoes so she can climb the stairs. And then she apparently yells out at the husband to tell him to make sure that the gates are closed because he was sitting in the car sending off some last minute emails at 2, 4, whatever time in the morning because so they headed home at 2. But they finally get home. He's sending off emails at 2 in the morning to staff. Like, what the heck does that mean? Like, who's sending emails? If you get an email from me at 2 in the morning, ignore it, Vina. It makes no sense.
Okay.
So anyway.
If you get an email from me at 2 in the morning, I'm probably at my most awake.
I've been there. It was a text message, but I've been there. We had a great
Here are
conversation.
my creative thoughts for the night.
I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I think. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I am half awake. I cannot have this conversation with you. Well, and then it was funny because then I wake up and he's like, I'm half awake. I have to go to bed. And I'm like, we are living separate lives. This is not going to work out. But look at us go. We're doing great today. So anyway, so he's sending off last minute emails. She said that she goes in the house, checks on the kids. That's her normal nightly routine. When she passes one of the doors of the kid's house, one of the 55, apparently, she sees lights on. So she goes in to talk to this child. While she's in the room, she all of a sudden hears gunshots and screaming. And so apparently at this time outside, the husband has been shot. And the 2 kids, 2 of them, I don't know if they were adopted or otherwise, are putting his bloodied body into the back of the car and trying to take him to the hospital. So she follows, but by the time that she arrives, he's dead. And in the autopsy, the coroners found that there were 30 bullet holes in his body, and many of them were concentrated around his groin. We'll come back to that as well. Right? Craziness.
If that's not a sign from Jesus,
right.
then
So
who
he's
shoots
40.
somebody in the groin.
It's intense. So after they hump on the car, it's fine. Okay, so he's 42 years old at the time of this, which means that she's 50,
58.
60? Yeah. She's 16 years older. Yeah, so 58. So
She actually, all the pictures that I saw, she looked on the younger side. Like, she did not look 60.
Even in 2023
one,
during
yeah.
her trial, yeah, she does not look that old. She actually has aged very well, surprisingly enough. So as this investigation kind of unfolds, they find that the scene was attempted to be staged to look like a robbery gone wrong. But as they go through it, they start to find all of these different things. And it's actually found that one of her Sousa's biological sons, Favio, and one of her adopted sons, Lucas, were arrested hours after the killing. So, I mean, it was super quick. Like, guy gets shot, dies, cops are there, kids are arrested. It was that fast. And which is, you know, in comparison to other stories that we've told, is kind of surprising because here's this very affluent couple, so to speak. And the fact that it went that quickly from them arresting the kids, it just seems insane. So he has an open casket. They say that she's just the ever-grieving widow, just inconsolable, crying her little eyes out. But when the boys are actually interrogated, Flavio originally tells the police that he fired 6 shots at his stepdad. But he later recants that statement. And then Lucas, the other one, confessed to buying the murder weapon. So they go to trial. They're both found guilty. Flavio gets 33 years for pulling the trigger, and Lucas is sentenced to 7 years for buying the weapon, but his sentence is reduced because he cooperated with the police.
Did they ever give a reason? What was his motive?
Yes, so this is what's so complicated about this, because those 2 boys are arrested, then eventually she's arrested, and a daughter is arrested. So we have, and then another 2 children, I believe, are also arrested but acquitted. So we have a whole number of this family working together, and all of these cases are kind of building on each other because, like, one pulled the trigger, one bought the weapon.
Once they started interviewing the kids started telling. And so instead of just interviewing the guys who were, like, half-ass involved, they interviewed everybody.
And there's 55 of them.
And everybody had something to say.
Right.
Such as?
Well, so some of the evidence that they used in the trial and some of the reasons for this is that one of the things that they talked about, one of the adopted children said that the couples would fight about money all the time. And so they were constantly fighting over who controlled the money. So apparently the stepdad, Anderson, he would keep more of the money because he had to pay the bills and he was keeping up the house while she was out being a star and being a congresswoman and all this other stuff. And then she would keep all of the other money for her own personal use. So he's keeping money to lock down the house. She's taking money to spend it on God knows what.
God does know what, so.
Right? Literally. Preach. So the other thing that as it came out is that she stated that she was raped and abused, and everyone was abused and physically, sexually abused by Anderson. And so the kids actually targeted the groin and were trying to protect her as well as everybody else from his overbearing financial control as well as his abuse.
His sexual abuse.
Right. There's nothing documented on that.
So there was no collaboration?
No. So then, as she goes to trial, we actually find out that she had tried to kill him 6 different times by poisoning him with cyanide and failed. And because she failed 6 different times, with the help of the children, mind you, she's bringing them in as co-conspirators, and they're well aware that they're trying to kill this guy together. She then decides that she's going to plan this murder instead because the cyanide wasn't working.
Yeah, he went to the hospital 6 times with, like, throwing up, upset stomach, all fucked up, and they keep saving him. And then he just ends up.
Did they determine it was cyanide at that point or no?
There's enough evidence that she actually gets convicted of 6 attempts of cyanide. So yes, I would assume that there's enough proof that this is happening.
But did they tell Anderson, dude,
Oh, no.
we think this was cyanide and you may want to change your life?
Well, we have to think too. So we're talking throughout a period of time, and we're starting in she was born in the
60s, I think.
60s, right? All the way she's meeting him in the 1990s. So, they probably weren't testing for stuff like that. Like cyanide poisoning in the early 90s was super
really
popular.
Tell you when.
No.
When he went to the hospital.
Well, and now cyanide is flavorful, right? Because that was a whole thing. Like antifreeze is also flavorful because everyone was trying to poison people, right? So I think it was just kind of popular. He didn't have enough evidence, and people probably thought he had stomach ulcers from being in such a position of power, and it would have probably looked the same way. So I think that she, if I remember correctly, the cyanide whole thing. The whole cyanide thing was found out because the kids ratted her out.
Okay.
So throughout her trial, she maintained that she loved her husband and denied that she had any involvement in it. But
She played the victim the whole time.
100%.
Oh my god!
I didn't know my kids were
how
doing
could
this.
this happen to me?
Right, and she was very upset. And ironically, while she's sitting in court getting sentenced to 50 years of 50 years in jail because of the murder, her new boyfriend was sitting there crying uncontrollably. I'm hoping that this guy was at least legal age.
I don't know who the new boyfriend is. Was he also a child?
Right?
Adopted?
I'm like, I don't know, probably.
And then at this point, I mean, granted, all the children are pretty much adults. Like the one who bought the gun, he was 18. The one who shot was like 30.
Mm-hmm. He's the older biological child. So
Yeah.
she had him in 1993. So, last year he'd be at least 30 something. So they also said that of the 55 kids, they ranged anywhere from like being itty bitty toddlers to being 40 years old, and they all lived in that house. That's how creepy this situation is.
Okay, fun fact. You mentioned before on like how she would feed the kid, or how she had enough money in the beginning. She didn't. When it all first started out, she had the kids dig through the garbage cans, through the dumpsters behind restaurants. So the only thing that the kids could eat is the stuff they found. That was the food issue. And then once they were interviewing the children pretty much confessed that there was a system established in the household where the older kids were assigned younger kids that they would take care of, so on and so forth.
There was a list established.
Yeah, the older
Like a
kids
hierarchy.
would take care of the younger kids, and the less time you had in the family, the less shit you had coming. And there was no love, affection from the mother dearest. She would show up and kind of like glance at them, and like essentially the way they talked about it is like she was making her own little cult, her own little army, and there was like really extreme things that were going on in the house. Like she would punish them. She would lock them in a room for 21 days to repent for whatever fuck they did, and the only reason the door would open is to slide some food in there and close it again. And she had them refer to her as this saint-like person and carry her in such a way. It was almost like a cult of like Charles Manson or something, where she was this being, and the kids were just following her. And they talked about the kids' actual parents trying to reach him, and she wouldn't.
Yeah, let them.
Yeah, she wouldn't let him communicate, and she would get the phone and hang up, and she would talk to the kids like, "You don't need those parents. I am, you're only one. I'm the divine." And
which is typically abusive behavior. I mean, isolate them, make them need you, make them fight for your attention and your love.
Creation of codependency.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then, to think back to all these stories where she converted the gang and got away from the gangs, and all these people that, would beat the shit out of you in the street for no reason. She was just like, oh, everything's fine. So what was she preaching to them, the word of God, or was she like offering them stuff?
Or was she the cartel leader that no one really talked about?
And then there was also talk about sexual abuse and pimping out the kids to other church members and so on and so forth. There was a lot of fucked up shit.
Yeah, really, what was her motivation in the first place to even start this? That's what you have to ask yourself. If you couldn't afford it, and you're not just like some millionaire that can just feed these kids and take good care of them, what was your motivation?
Money.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not at first, right? Because she didn't necessarily get money until she started to like get more notoriety.
The
Which
publicity.
Which she fed into and, expanded on.
So it makes you think, was this her plan all along? Was it worth having them dig through the garbage and get them through those first couple of years to try to, because she was always looking to take those
that's
steps?
a good question. I don't know.
Or maybe she adopted the gang mental state where, we get all these kids in, they're going to work for us, they're going to bring us money, they're going to bring us food.
Right. What if she just saw the gangs doing that and was like, this is something I can manipulate too?
Right. This is a system that I could utilize. Mm-hmm. When did the allegations of the children being pimped out to the church members, did that come during her trial?
I think it was during the interviews and stuff with the kids. I think the kids just kind of said, I don't know if it was during the trial or if it was just something
like during the investigation
that they said. Yeah.
So the kids kind of just spilled the beans, because once you break that trust and loyalty and that isolation, kids are going to talk.
Right. So how many years for his murder did she get?
She got 50 years, and she was 50 years in a couple days. She was 61 at the time she was convicted. And actually, because she was part of Congress, she had parliamentary immunity.
Diplomatic immunity.
And they actually revoked it in June of 2021 by an overwhelming vote to expel her. And because of that, they were able to carry on with the trial, which is kind of interesting.
So they waited for that to happen.
Well, they had to. And then Congress was like, yeah, sure, take her. And they voted and kicked her out, and she was, up to
So St. Teresa was not such a saint after all.
No.
Right. So funny enough, the court is quoted as saying that the length of her sentence reflected the hatred, cold-bloodedness, and disrespect for human life, as she had demonstrated by having her husband shot dead in the home that she shared with the dozens of children that she had adopted.
Right.
She plans to appeal that conviction. And then, as we talked about, so the two sons got 33 and 7 years. And then the biological daughter was also found guilty of involvement in all of this situation. And she was sentenced to 31 years.
Where'd you get the cyanide?
I don't know, Vina.
Okay.
I don't know where cyanide comes from.
Did we not give you enough?
Are
I
you
was
not
so much-
entertained?
I'm like, I don't know. I didn't look up the cyanide. But, it's funny because, there's classic murder lists, right? Like, if someone gets cyanide, your NSA agent should be on their ass. Like, if someone goes to Walmart and buys black garbage bags, duct tape, plastic for the floor, right, a shovel, we should be just keying in on them.
Right. Okay. All right. So this was our Mommy Dearest Flordelis.
And she was
pimping
definitely
out
not
the
a
children.
saint.
I'd like to cite this YouTube video, which I got a lot of my stuff from. Flordelis dos Santos, her name, but it's by Not the Good Girl, and it's a 40-minute video, and it has a lot of good stuff in it. So if you liked our story, it's worth watching that video.
I'm so glad you did that. I would like to cite that I used the BBC.com, The Guardian, that covered her trial in multiple parts as it was going on, and I also used the New Yorker.
Okay. All right. So that is what we have for you tonight. On to business.
Facebook. We have a Facebook page.
Go like, comment, share. Tell us your opinions about Mommy Dearest. Do you think that why was she doing this? What do you guys think?
Where do you want them to go?
Facebook. You
Just
said
Facebook?
that.
Yeah, we didn't say the Facebook
I was getting
name.
there.
Okay.
I don't have Facebook, so I'm the horrible person to do this. I haven't even seen our Facebook page. I have to see Brutus in person. I'm like, can I see our Facebook page? Do people like me? I don't even have social media.
Our Facebook page.
All right.
The Facebook
Yes,
name
Facebook.
is where the dark corners are.
That would be our email address as well. So if you have a
At
topic,
gmail.com.
correct. And so if you have a topic you'd like for us to cover, and Mommy Dearest, maybe down the line, that you'd like to hear about, send us a request at where the dark corners are at gmail.com. Corners is plural. Final thoughts, Samantha?
I don't know. This woman is just bananas. And I thought it was really interesting to see that she got away with this for so long. I thought it was interesting to see that she was able to have a child groom and no one said anything. I thought it was interesting to see how she hid behind her popularity, and it's another televangelical person that ended up being a horrible person. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I really learned if people are on TV, don't listen to their prophecies.
Polar Bear?
Yeah, I like it. Don't trust what people tell you. I mean, use your brain. See, take everything into account, and don't just go by somebody's word, especially if it's religious.
Well, and I think this is a really good example that power does corrupt all. The more power she got, the worse she got. But it also just shows you about, following someone blindly. I still think that was just crazy. No one could see her for who she was. That's where the whole, if it's too good to be true, it's probably not type of vibe going. And, no one really questioned it. I think that's crazy. And we never asked this. Final thoughts, Vina?
How the turns have tabled.
I'm like, I don't think we've ever asked her. We need to ask her more often. I liked it. I saw what you did there.
The whole podcast is my final thoughts.
We had thoughts. Now we're putting you on the spot. We want to hear it. What are they?
mine are this lady. I mean, sincerely, some sort of social services should have been involved to confirm that the children were getting the attention and all of their needs met.
I think that speaks to where they were and the condition of the neighborhood that they were living in. They probably didn't have those services.
Well, no. I mean, and if you have St. Teresa taking care of your job,
you're
not
like,
gonna
thank
interfere.
God.
Yeah, exactly.
Later.
So, I think this lady fell into the cracks, but she's also a representative of a lot of the bullshit that happens here. I mean, in every country, if you think about it.
100%.
All right. So until next time.
I thought you were gonna ask me for more final thoughts.
Oh, I was really
like,
hoping you were going to say the ending. It sounded like you started it.
What? Oh.
So until next time, please remember, only the few can find the beauty in the darkness, which is where we hope to meet you, where the dark corners are.
So, you know,
All right! Charlie! You be quiet!
I was a little scared. Chewy, hide. She's going to get you.
I don't think I want to talk anymore.
I want to go home. The collator is angry. Because there's like a fine line between holy speaking in tongues and exorcism.
You want to start that again?
What?
You coughed in the middle of what you're...
I'm sorry.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
There's like a fine line.
Are you starting this shit again, Sam?
Like, what did I do? I wasn't going to tangent back into religion, please.
And you just kept on talking.
I'm a mom of 3. I'm very good at swerving and ignoring. Thank you. No, I was just... So, hold on. How much do I need to start over? You left it all in the last episode when I repeated myself 3 times. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. What were we talking about?
You said there's a fine line.
Divine healing, speaking in
about
tongues.
speaking in tongues. Yeah, so...
And that was...
Yeah, shake the ruler out of him. That'll get him.
Is it every time I talk?
He loves you. Well, until you tried to bite your face off
So,
one day.
that was...
Knock it off.
Please don't hit us, Bina.
I was just joking.
I'm doing my best. I should have researched the children.